You can tell that I make it look easy. It's a cheat code. It's a free throw. If it's so illegal, you can tell that I make it look easy. It's a cheat code. It's a free throw. If it's so illegal, yeah.
The game is strategic, I'm bobbing and weaving. Don't argue with demons, okay?
Okay.
Ain't nothing between us, vacation on Venus. I mean it, I'm somewhere you ain't okay. I feel like I'm Jordan when I turn the mic on a dangerous cycle. I make you a rival, I pray for the title. We making the finals, I pray we don't spiral, I pray we don't. I wrote out the vision, been focusing winning. Don't try to guess me, you know that we driven. Nothing get past me, you know we ain't slipping. The team is on 10, man, I promise we different. Scotty and Dennis, we killing opponents. This ain't what you want, no way. Yeah, I know it ain't fair, we just taking it there. Hope it's coming through clear.
You can tell that I make it look easy. It's a cheat code. It's a free throw. If it's so illegal, you can tell that I make it look easy. It's a cheat code. It's a free throw. If it's so illegal, yeah. You can tell that I make it look. You can tell that I make it look. You can tell that I make it look. Double take or a second look, bruh. You can tell that I make it look. You can tell that I make it look. You can tell that I make it look. Ain't no wonder why I got him shook.
Welcome to Wicked. My name is Jake. This is, I believe, our inaugural live stream. So, except for the 12 seconds I accidentally went up at 5 in the morning. If you're not familiar, this is Wicked. That stands for what you can do. Because we're at a place where it's not enough to simply know what's happening in the news. A lot of people understand that, listen to that gulp, oof. A lot of people understand that we're at a place where you have to take action. You have to actually get involved. And almost nobody knows what you can do. Well, don't worry. It's not that hard. I'll explain it to you. Let's talk about, a great week for people that don't like Donald Trump. This guy included. It's been a doozy. My word. Let me just go ahead, get you started with the announcement that came out Tuesday. Trump's taxes are finally going to be released after 6 years. It's a bigger deal in terms of corruption than I think most people fully understand. This guy should have released his taxes when he was campaigning, and he used every excuse in the book not to. The reason you do that is so that the American public has the opportunity to see if you're compromised. We'll get into the new developments in a moment, but imagine, if you will, that a political candidate had a bunch of pending property deals with, say, North Korea, that nightmare dictatorship. You might want to know that before you cast your vote, don't you think? Well, the way the public finds that out is in the tax returns. Or rather, not pending, but if he has active properties. Or Russia, for example. If a candidate is getting a lot of their money from Russian oligarchs, you'd want to know that, wouldn't you? Well, if you wouldn't, congratulations on voting for a traitor because you are MAGA, and therefore yourself a traitor. Now, the House Ways and Means Committee has been investigating the IRS's mandatory audit program of the president. Let me go ahead and underline that one more time. Mandatory audit program of the president. Why is it mandatory? The same reason it is the tradition for candidates to release their tax returns when they're running. You need to know if the President of the United States is acting in a corrupt manner, is bought by a foreign power, you need to know who owns them. Trump did not get audited in 2017. He did not get audited in 2018. He did not get audited in 2019. That's 3 years that he was supposed to be audited by default because he was the president. But he was not. Oh, now why did that happen? Let's have a look. An audit, which is required, was only started when the House committee contacted the IRS to ask where they stood with their audits. That very day, the day they contacted the IRS, is when the IRS actually began an audit, which they were required to do. Why was the IRS covering for Trump? Corruption. Chris Rettig was a California tax lawyer in 2016 when he wrote an opinion column in support of Donald Trump's decision not to release his tax returns. To be clear, no president since Nixon has done that. Yeah, that charm. No president since Nixon has failed to release their tax returns. It was a pretty wild stance for Rettig to take. Unless you know Donald Trump, you know he's looking for sycophants and you're campaigning for a job. Trump then made Rettig head of the IRS. Let me just go back. The guy who said the president didn't need to release his tax returns. That guy's made the head of the IRS. It is such a blatantly corrupt move in and of itself. If nothing else happened beyond that, that was corruption. Picking somebody based on your personal benefit rather than the country's benefit. But of course it gets worse. Of course. This led to the agency ignoring their duty for Trump's benefit. Rettig does not perform the necessary audits. Why would he do this? For one, it's not nothing to be made head of the IRS. If you yourself are a corrupt businessman that does not want to be investigated, great way to do that. And this is admittedly speculation, but is to be in charge of the agency that would investigate you. And it's just a feather in your cap. So in and of itself, there's a reward in being the head of the IRS. But of course, there's more. In 2006, Rettig bought a 50% interest in 2 Trump-branded properties in Waikiki. Trump-branded means that Trump doesn't actually operate them, so they have a chance of succeeding. But they have Trump's name on them. Trump gets a 10% cut of whatever they make. Because believe it or not, once upon a time, his name was associated with fanciness and class as people with no class understood it. He still owned them in 2018 when he was nominated. And he did not disclose that fact initially. He had to be forced to. Basically, other people found out, questioned him directly, and he could not then further lie. He lied by omission in not mentioning them. So why does it matter if he owns a couple of Trump-branded properties? Well, that means they're tied financially to Trump's reputation. So Chris Rettig, head of the IRS, He's the guy who decides whether or not Trump is going to get audited as of 2018, and if, say, plain evidence that Trump is a terrible businessman came out, like a tax bombshell, like, I don't know, showing that he made no money for many, many years, showing that he didn't have as much money as he said he did, showing that he's just kind of an incompetent moron. That would make those properties lose value. For perspective on how much value we're talking about, Reddick has made millions off of those two properties since 2006. Millions. So he has a financial interest in protecting Trump's reputation. Again, he tried to hide that in his confirmation. Democrats are so weak, however, that they couldn't stop him from being confirmed. Oh well. This is textbook political corruption. This is like what a 14-year-old might write in an essay in a hypothetical scenario when trying to demonstrate that they understand what political corruption looks like. I want to say, if you're interested in further reading, CREW, C-R-E-W, is responsible for the reporting on Reddick's properties. There's an article on his corrupt dealings with Trump. That's go to citizensforethics.org. You can see it, and I will. I'm going to upload this video again in a little bit after it's processed. Yada yada. I'll include, of course, the link in the description. But again, that is the CREW article on Chris Reddick's corrupt dealings with Trump. Wonderful reporting. Citizensforethics.org in general. Fantastic site. I recommend you check it out. We're also going to put up the House Ways and Means Committee report. Fascinating stuff. This guy, Trump, as you will have seen reported elsewhere, did not pay taxes for many of those years. I think he paid $750 twice in 2020. That's a big old goose egg, gang. To quote a humorous improv comic, he paid nothing in 2020. Absolutely deserves to be addressed. But that was just part of Trump's terrible, no good, very bad week. I'd like to show you, if I can, Trump's perhaps worse start to his week. The Jan 6 committee had their final hearing. Bear in mind that in 2016, Trump was claiming that the election was rigged. Even though he won, he said it was rigged against him. I am, of course, not even talking about the general election. He claimed that in the Republican primaries in states he didn't win. If you have any dumbass family members who are still Trump supporters, please point out to them that Trump complained that the Republican primaries that he didn't win, because you don't have to win every state, you just have to win enough. Yeah, he said those were rigged against it. Then again, even though he also eventually won the general election, he said that was rigged against him. He, if maybe you can remember this, he famously said, I will accept the results of the elections if I win. He mocked us with it. He mocked us with how blatantly he was willing to lie. We can't let that slide. Because it went all the way up to this. January 6th. Well, that ain't perfect. Stand by, folks. Oh, look at that infinite loop. Oh, it's terrible. We are attempting to play a video with OBS.
But before we do so, it's important to remember what we've learned and critically exactly what happened at the United States Capitol on January 6th. Without objection, I include in the record a video presentation of some of the key evidence our investigation has uncovered.
There were officers on the ground. They were bleeding. They were throwing up. I mean, I saw friends with blood all over their faces. I was slipping in people's blood.
As I was swarmed by a violent mob, they ripped off my badge. They grabbed and stripped me of my radio. They seized ammunition that was secured to my body.
Let's just run that back real quick. One officer talking about slipping in people's blood. Another officer talking about getting beaten and having his ammunition stripped off his belt. Would you put up with that behavior in any other group of people? The closest we've come to justice so far is a bunch of peons getting jail time. Not even all that much, by the way. 4 years, 5 years. They tried to overthrow democracy. 5 years. Oh, so harsh.
They began to beat me with their fists and with what felt like hard metal objects.
The key thing to do is to claim victory. No, we won. Fuck you. Sorry, over. We won. Yeah. You're wrong. Fuck you.
Trump knew he lost. Really want to stress that. Here's Roger Stone.
No, we won. Fuck you. Sorry, over. We won. Yeah. You're wrong. Fuck you.
Trump knew he lost. That's Roger Stone giving everybody their marching orders. Say we won, no matter what.
Right out of the box on election night, the president claimed that there was major fraud underway. I mean, this happened, as far as I could tell, before there was actually any potential of looking at evidence.
I didn't think what was happening.
Trump says there's fraud before he could even have seen evidence of it.
Was necessarily honest or professional at that point in time. So that led to me stepping away.
Generally discussed on that topic was whether the fraud, maladministration, abuse, or irregularities, if aggregated and read most favorably to the campaign, would that be outcome determinative? And I think everyone's assessment in the room, at least amongst the staff, Mark Short, myself, and Greg Jacob, was that it was not sufficient to be outcome determinative.
I told him that I did believe, yes, that once those legal processes were run, if fraud had not been established, that had affected the outcome of the election, that unfortunately I believe that what had to be done was concede the outcome.
What were the chances of President Trump winning the election?
After that point?
Yes.
None.
So what are we going to do here, folks? I only need 11,000 votes. Fellas, I need 11,000 votes.
That phone call was public. It was made public before all of this happened. That phone call by itself was enough to put him in handcuffs. One thing we're going to touch on in a moment that you got to consider. Why wasn't he already under arrest? That phone call right there is sedition.
Give me a break.
The numbers are the numbers. The numbers don't lie. We had many allegations, and we investigated every single one of them.
Did one of them make a comment that they didn't have evidence, but they had a lot of theories?
That was Mr. Giuliani.
And what exactly did he say, and how that come up?
My recollection, he said, we've got lots of theories, we just don't have the evidence. You're asking me to do something that's never been done in history, the history of the United States, and I'm going to put my state through that without sufficient proof?
It's a tape earlier in the day of Ruby Freeman and Shay Freeman Moss and one other gentleman quite obviously, surreptitiously passing around USB ports as if they're vials of heroin or cocaine.
Important to know, Rudy Giuliani is aware when he's saying that. He is aware that there is no such evidence. He knows what he's doing. He also knows, this guy was he prosecuted the mob. He knows how this works. He knows he's putting those people in danger. He needs to be under arrest as well.
In one of the videos we just watched, Mr. Giuliani accused you and your mother of passing some sort of USB drive to each other. What was your mom actually handing you on that video?
A ginger mint. Do you know how it feels to have the President of the United States to target you? The President of the United States is supposed to represent every American, not to target one.
Just want to go back again and point out that Rudy Giuliani was trying to sick Trump's craziest followers on a little old lady. That doesn't make you mad. You're not a man or a woman, an adult. That doesn't make you mad. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Then get mad. Then take action. We'll tell you what you can do in a moment. Let's keep watching.
I made it clear I did not agree with the idea of saying the election was stolen and putting out this stuff, which I told the president was bullshit.
He wanted to talk about that he thought the election had been stolen or was corrupt and that there was widespread fraud. And I had told him that our reviews had not shown that to be the case.
And I said something to the effect of, sir, we've done dozens of investigations, hundreds of interviews. The major allegations are not supported by the evidence developed.
Well, my first thought was, this is a terrible idea. Jeff Clark cannot be installed as acting Attorney General of the United States.
You ultimately told us that you described this meeting as not this meeting, the Georgia letter that was proposed as an effing murder-suicide pact. Do you remember using the term murder-suicide pact?
Yes.
Was it your impression that the vice president had directly conveyed his position on these issues to the president, not just to the world through a dear colleague letter, but directly to President Trump?
Many times. My view was that the vice president didn't have the legal authority to do anything except what he did.
And I said,
let me be very clear, just in case anybody is still out there in danger of thinking Mike Pence is a brave man or a noble person. He looked for every possible opportunity to get away with overturning the election. Mike Pence did. He spent the days leading up to January 6th going to every legal expert he knew and he knew of to find a route towards saying yes, to find an interpretation that he could claim was legitimate. But it was such a clown plan that Trump had that he couldn't do it. And at the end of the day, Mike Pence wasn't the one staring down the barrel of bankruptcy, which, by the way, Trump is. He became president right as a series of financial disasters were looming. Mike Pence was looking towards his own political career and his own future. And it is only because Trump is such an incompetent that he did not go along with the plan. Remember that.
hold on a second, I want to understand what you're saying. You're saying that you believe the vice president, acting as president of the Senate, can be the sole decision maker as to, under your theory, who becomes the next president of the United States? And you said yes. And I said, are you out of your effing mind?
The president was, all the attention was on what Mike would do or what Mike wouldn't do.
There's a telephone conversation between the president and the vice president, is that correct?
Yes.
The conversation was pretty heated.
Apologize for being impolite, but do you remember what she said her father called him?
The P word. It was clear that it was escalating and escalating quickly.
Literal lynch mob, by the way. Literal lynch mob. You want to know who you would have been during the civil rights movement? It's whoever you are right now. The stakes are the same. You want to know who you would have been in 1863? It's who you are right now.
So then when that tweet, the Mike Pence tweet, was sent out, I remember us saying that that was the last thing that needed to be tweeted at that moment. It felt like he was pouring gasoline on the fire by tweeting that.
They've gained access to the second floor, and I've got public about 5 feet from me down here below.
Okay, copy. They are on the second floor, moving in now. We may want to consider getting out and leaving now. Copy.
The members of the VP detail at this time were starting to fear for their own lives. There were calls to say goodbye to family members, so on and so forth.
Approximately.
Calls to say goodbye to family members. United States of America. And our politicians are running around fleeing from mobs. We allowed this to happen by putting up with this nonsense. Let's continue.
40 feet. That's all there was. 40 feet between the vice president and the mob.
Donald Trump and his allies and supporters are a clear and present danger.
If you don't know who that is as right-wing as you can possibly get while still maintaining any sort of ideology, I suppose. That fella right there, Judge Ludig, is not a good person, in my view. And he is certainly not anything except as conservative as you get. But he also happens to be, at least amongst conservative circles, and that includes a lot of Democrats, very well respected. For him to be saying what he's saying, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you need the context. For him to be saying what he's saying about a Republican president is not nothing.
To American democracy.
We got derogatory information from OSINT suggesting that some very, very violent individuals were organizing to come to D.C.
As Mr. Giuliani and I were walking to his vehicles that evening, he looked at me and said something to the effect of, "Cass, are you excited for the 6th? It's going to be a great day." I remember looking at him saying, "Rudy, could you explain what's happening on the 6th?"
Just want to point this out. These people that are talking, so far, all of them, they're Trump's team. This is Trump's team telling you this. These are not even if you're a MAGA weirdo, and by the way, go after yourself, but even if you are one of those scumbags, you cannot call these people rhinos. This is Trump's inner circle telling the story. And why are they doing it? Because they are under oath. Why are they saying bad things about Trump? Because they will suffer if they lie. Because their stories are being checked against each other. Worth noting, Trump was asked to come give his side of the story. He could have. He could have. Why didn't he? He would have been under oath. And the truth is incriminating.
He had responded something to the effect of, "We're going to the Capitol. It's going to be great. The president's going to be there. He's going to look powerful."
He personally asked for us to come to D.C. that day. And I thought, for everything he's done for us, if this is the only thing he's going to ask of me.
Again, just want to stress, does that guy look like Antifa to you? You conspiracy theory weirdos? Sorry, I'm yelling at MAGA people right now. Being under oath is a hell of a thing.
I'll do it.
Well, basically, the president, got everybody riled up, told everybody to head on down. So we basically were just following what he said.
We lost the line! We lost the line! Anthony, get back!
Within 15 minutes of leaving the stage, President Trump knew that the Capitol was besieged and under attack.
So are you aware of any phone call by the President of the United States to the Secretary of Defense that day?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Are you aware of any phone call by the President of the United States to the Attorney General of the United States that day?
No.
Are you aware of any phone call by the President of the United States to the Secretary of Homeland Security that day?
I'm not aware of that, no.
Did you ever hear the president
No.
ask for the national guard? Did you ever hear?
Because he was hoping that the coup would work. He was hoping to get news that they've done it. I realize that even if the mob had gone in there and done what they said they were going to do to Mike Pence, it wouldn't have worked. The military would eventually have dealt with it. Remember, Trump is a moron.
The president asked for law enforcement response.
No.
You got an assault going on the Capitol of the United States of America. And there's nothing. No call, nothing, zero.
I remember Pat saying something to the effect of, Mark, we need to do something more. They're literally calling for the vice president to be effing hung. And Mark had responded something to the effect of, you heard him, Pat. He thinks Mike deserves it. He doesn't think they're doing anything wrong.
Who on the staff did not want people to leave the Capitol?
On the staff?
In the White House.
I can't think of anybody, on that day who didn't want people to get out of the Capitol once particularly once the violence started. No. I mean,
What about the president?
Yeah.
well, she said the staff. So I answered.
You notice that people tend to do that when the stuff they left out is damning. They don't tend to do that when hey, how was your summer? Oh, I went down and visited my mom. I got some ice cream. Didn't you make $1 million? Oh yeah, that's right. I made $1 million. No. This guy. Oh gosh. This guy's going out of his way not to take responsibility. That's the content of their character. And yet, he knows he's under oath. He understands the seriousness of the situation, and so he is asked directly now. Because he has to be asked directly, or he'll wiggle out of it.
No, I said in the White House.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I thought you said who else on the staff. I can't reveal communications, but obviously I think, yeah.
I said, good, John. Now I'm going to give you the best free legal advice you're ever getting in your life. Get a great effing criminal defense lawyer. You're going to need it.
General Flynn, do you believe in the peaceful transition of power?
That last guy's so pleased because he knows he didn't do anything. Just having the time of his life. Like, yeah, I didn't do it. I thought about it. I didn't do it. Oh, a guy that I'm covering up right now is a GD traitor in a number of ways. I might do a whole video just on that mole man. Let me get out of there. Yeah, that little mole man right over the C-SPAN logo.
In the United States of America?
Yes, sir.
Dude is asked if he believes in the peaceful transfer of power, aka something America actually used to brag about all the time, actually used to get praised for all the time. The fact that we transfer power peacefully, the fact that we don't do stuff like this. This guy was a general in our military, Flynn, is asked that. He pleads the fifth because the answer may incriminate him. We ought to be baying for blood right now. These people need to be in prison. Let's keep it going.
Another officer unconscious.
Another.
What, sir?
Another officer.
I don't want to say the election's over. I just want to say Congress has certified the results without saying the election's over, okay?
Yeah. So there it is. If you want to skip 10 hours of, the most interesting, if tragic, piece of politics ever caught on film, Kennedy aside, That's the summary of evidence for Jan 6. After that, the Jan 6 committee recommended the Justice Department pursue 4 criminal charges against Donald Trump. Obstruction of an official proceeding, obviously. Conspiracy to defraud the United States. Conspiracy to make a false statement. Let's pause there for a second. Conspiracy to make a false statement? Yeah, you know how when police are interviewing a couple of criminals, they will separate them, especially while they're waiting. So one goes into one room, another goes into another room. Why do you do that? Why not just ask them together? So they can't get their story straight if they're lying. If they're telling the truth, they don't need to coordinate their story. If they know they're going to lie ahead of time, well, they conspire about the false statement they're going to make. Conspiracy to make a false statement about the 2020 election. That's the 3rd charge recommended. Aiding or comforting those involved in an insurrection. 4th charge. Aiding or comforting those involved in an insurrection against the United States of America. Doesn't look good for Trump. You would be shocked, I think, if you were to look back at the amount of crimes that Democrats and the Justice Department have allowed Republicans to get away with. The Iraq War, for example, was launched on a lie that George Bush and Colin Powell told to the American people. Colin Powell under oath, presumably under the instruction of George Bush. We're going to get back to this in a moment, but you cannot just assume that that recommendation by the Jan 6 committee will mean that charges get pressed or filed even. I don't know what I'm saying. That charges are pursued in any way. They are looking right now, desperately looking, for a way to let him go. Right now, they're following the standard playbook that they always have. And I'm 36. I've seen this happen 3 times with 3 criminal Republican presidents in my life. And I am aware of more. But the quick recap, Nixon, pardoned. Ronald Reagan, for Iran-Contra, nothing pursued, simply let go. Oliver North, I talked about that in a previous video. He was the fall guy, and the fall wasn't very far. George W. Bush, so 4 presidents. George W. Bush, not W, good Lord. George H.W. Bush. Yeah, he was also involved in Iran-Contra. He was vice president at the time. If you're unfamiliar with that, did another video, check it out. I'll do a link in the yada yada. George W. Bush, his scumbag son, lied, got 7,000 American soldiers killed, 8,000 contractors, unknown number of Iraqi citizens killed on a lie. Trump is putting them in an awkward position because he is so dumb. He does not know how to use the dog whistles correctly. He does not know when to shut up and just let Democrats give him a pass. He is so bad at doing the normal Republican thing that yes, it has actually energized the base of the Republican Party, which are too dumb to really understand the dog whistles or don't understand why they have to dog whistle about violence or racism or any of that. And they want it just said, right? So he riles them up with his stupidity, and he's seen as brave, but really it's just that he's not clever enough to dance around it. And it embarrasses Democrats, and it embarrasses the Justice Department, who are just desperate to let them get away with it. By the way, I still don't understand why. To a degree, I believe it's that they see themselves as the same class, just powerful people versus everybody else, apparently. But it does not make sense to me. The only thing I can speculate on here is just the cowardice involved. It's just easier. They don't see profit in pursuing Republican criminals. I don't know. But Trump being Trump, he can't shut up. So, of course, with all this stuff coming out, he has made an ass of himself. Let's have a look at what he had to say. Here he is on Truth Social. The FBI and Twitter colluded to elect Joe Biden, says Jesse Waters, according to Trump. Well, he did say that. In other words, the 2020 presidential election was rigged and stolen. God, what a child. It all began a long time ago. They spied on my campaign and tried to rig, in quotes, the 2016 election, but failed. Remember, our government is doing this, not a person or party. What should be done about such a terrible thing? Or should, I'm not going to do goofy voice. What should be done about such a terrible thing? Or should we let someone who was elected by cheating and fraud stay in office and continue to destroy our country? Let someone stay in office? He knows that the noose is tightening, and he's panicking. And he's actually tightening it more, because that, ladies and gentlemen, is more treason. I don't even fantasize that the Justice Department will actually hold him accountable for these rants, but you got to know about it. Because, let me pull up that other one again. Look at this. That is 44,000 people that liked that little announcement. That's 44,000 people, any one of which might be the one that decides today is going to be the day they take a gun and kill you or your family. He's trying to do it. He's trying to kick off this thing. He wants a shooting war. Not an accident that the Republicans are well armed. Not an accident that Donald Trump is saying what he's saying. Let's look at another one. This is him updating a previous rant after seeing the Jan 6 committee. Our country is sick inside, very much like a person dying of cancer. The crooked FBI, the so-called Department of Justice and Intelligence. It's so hard not to do it. He does these stupid quotes. He's such a moron. All parts of the Democratic Party and system is the cancer. These weaponized thugs and tyrants must be dealt with, or our once great and beautiful country, capital C for some reason, will die! Exclamation points. Every accusation is an admission for these people. The party that has Matt Gaetz in it, a person who transported a 17-year-old across state lines for sex. That's child sex trafficking. That's the party that calls people groomers. This guy is saying that the country's in danger because of tyranny. Yeah. And that we agree. I cannot stress this enough. Democrats will try to bail him out. You want to know what evidence I have of that this time they're going to try again? Even though they aren't Democrats, the ones that did the Jan 6 committee? Yeah, because it was so obvious, it was embarrassing for them not to do anything. And they had Republicans on it, so they actually had some people that knew how to attack. I despise Liz Cheney. She sold out her sister. Her sister's a lesbian. Liz Cheney voted against gay marriage being allowed in this country. Liz Cheney's not a good person. She knows how to attack, though. Credit where it's due. Adam Kinzinger, not a good person, does know how to attack. The Jan 6 committee managed to gather enough vertebrae together to assemble one whole working spine. And they recommended, all of this was just so they could make a recommendation. Morons. They recommended those 4 criminal charges. But you have to understand that they're going to try, they being Democrats and certainly the Justice Department, are going to try to let Trump go. How do I know? Here's how. It's been 2 years. Remember what I said earlier? The Georgia phone call, find me 11,280 votes, whatever it was. Immediately should have been arrested for that. It's been 2 years after an attempted self-coup in the United States of America. Why have they waited so long? It is not because they need time to do X, Y, or Z. The evidence played on camera. It was broadcast on live television. They've waited so long because the standard strategy, which I have seen happen, personally I've seen it happen, since I wasn't really conscious for Reagan, so let's say George H.W. Bush. They wait. They let you get bored. They drag on proceedings, and then when they test the temperature and realize enough people are not paying attention, they let them go. It's what they do. They wait for you to get bored with it. They wait for you to run out of steam. And then they do an announcement wherein they say one of two things. One, we're letting X criminal Republican go because, without punishment, because the country needs to heal. You want a great example of that? Barack Obama. People were asking, are you going to look into this weapons of mass destruction lie? And Barack Obama's response, no, the country needs to heal. It's time to come together again. Otherwise known as, I don't want to take responsibility for this. I am a coward. Yeah. Or they do its equivalent. They say, we are now announcing that we have done this inconsequential nonsense. Republican X does criminal thing. Democrats wait and wait and wait until you barely remember what the thing was anymore, even though usually somebody's died because of it. And then they say, and he has been fined $300. But it's a permanent mark on his record. Or they say, or some lesser campaign staffer gets 6 months in jail, and they serve 2 weeks, and then they're let out, and everybody goes, shh, 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 don't say anything. Oh, and then they're giving a job on Fox as a commentator. That's how they let him get away with it. You need to put pressure on him. When this live stream is uploaded as a video, you will have a link to contact your representative. I know it sounds basic, but guess what? They need to know, as in your representative, whether they're on a committee or not. They need to know that you're watching, that you're impatient, that you're sick of waiting, that you will not allow them to allow Republicans to get away with it. They're supposed to be your voice in Washington. If you don't know how to contact, if you don't know how to, put pressure on the Justice Department, by the way, I did a whole video on that. But if you don't know, that's okay. It's their job. Make them do it. As I don't have regular viewers yet. But if I get them and you're having fun going through old videos, then you'll know. It's something we always say to do. Write your representative, because your representative has a whiteboard in their office wherein they write down the issues with a tally of what their constituents are talking about. The people who call, the people who email, they are viewed as likely voters. One thing these people absolutely care about is their own power. They care about getting reelected. They can't get their bribes. They can't do stock manipulation. They can't do all the stuff that they got into office for if they're not voted back in. So, you need to fill up that board with Arrest Trump marks. Once a week. Write an email, call in, get in touch. Thank you for joining me today. It's 11:21. I recommend, if you're looking for more stuff to do, Majority Report should be live. Check them out. Sam Seder is the GOAT, in my opinion. Jon Stewart, he's the Dr. J. He was the guy that started this humorous political commentary game. Sam Seder's Jordan. Check out the Majority Report. It's a great show. Emma Viglin's also on it. And of course, Matt. Check it out. It's a good one. Thank you for joining me today. My name's Jake.